All right, looks like we're live. I think I'm waiting to see I'm waiting for one more number to pop up on my display here, and I haven't seen it yet. There it is. Okay. Let's make sure we're going here. Looks like we did. Okay. All right. I'm satisfied my stream is working. Okay. Welcome everybody. It's been a heavy series of like presentations lately, and I want to talk about something that's a little bit more light. I mean, it's never going to be light on this channel, I guess, entirely, but we'll do our best. But I want to talk about some movies. I put some of them inside the description. Actually, most of the ones I talk about are there. And I can't really get away with playing clips from movies in my live streams any longer. They shut me down, and sometimes my channel gets like gone for a long time when I do it. How others get away with it, I don't know. But for some reason, when it's me, it gets shut down. The slide that I used for this exact presentation, that one that I did the original slide for with the Blue Lou Boyle and True Romance and explaining all that, that's the one that basically has given me a permanent mark on my YouTube channel. So I have to be kind of cautious about how I approach some of the Hollywood material, especially because literally, guys, it's like a completely unexplained. You can't talk to anybody about why or how. It made no sense. They even said it was like deceptive practices or fraud or something like that. And I'm like, I'm talking about True Romance and what Blue Lou Boyle, and oh, because I was talking about medical things is probably why. Anyways, it's not. I mean, I was just talking about medical industry things. Like there's a connection between Kaiser Soze, the character inside the movie, The Usual Suspects, and then the name Kaiser and the meaning of Kaiser extends to other things. And I was actually talking about that exact topic tonight. Hell, maybe I'll even mention that tonight. But that one's getting, wow. There's some things, guys, that like, if I said it to you and told it to you, it would just be like, whoa. The problem is like, it really should just be for a limited audience for them to review because it does involve things that are quite specific, like me putting like a very specific pinpoint on a street corner and going like, all right, there you go. Now you come on, man. And then it'll be like, ooh. But see, like sometimes that the area that I draw the pinpoint to is so specific that it would be like there's no way I could present it to you guys, is all I'm trying to say. Like that's how specific the information is. You'll have to forgive me, guys. I haven't had any coffee today, so you're gonna have to just like deal with that. Sadly lacking in caffeine, so unless I can find a way to rig me up some, I'm going to have to deal with that. So all right. I wanted to talk about movies that are more like so say for example, you want something that's a little bit more lighthearted and don't want to like, whether it's just for yourself, like a night at the movies kind of thing. Um, Let me see here. I got them ready to go. Okay. Right here, PCU is this movie that I saw back in the 90s in the movie theater when I was just looking for something stupid like a beer comedy to watch with my friends. We all got drunk and went and got, guys got a beer mug on the front. That's what we were doing. We just wanted some stupid, silly comedy to get drunk and go watch. And so, yeah, it functions a little bit like a modern Animal House, like on the surface, right? But PCU was in the mid 90s, right at the height of the political correctness movement as it was being introduced to us. And so the movie is doing some really, really like high level, brilliant kind of like in a very short amount of time. I mean, this movie's not even 80 minutes, I don't think. It's like probably one of the shortest comedies you'll ever see. And it has Jeremy Piven as the lead guy, and John Favreau has a bit part in it. David Spade plays one of the conservatives. So it's like basically the university is horrendously, painfully politically correct. It's like to the point where nothing can happen on campus without it spurning some form of protest, or one group versus another group hating on the other person for just existing, and then getting upset about it. And so the movie basically has this one frat that's sort of like the Animal House Delta House, right? Where they're the rebels of the whole campus, and they're the ones that are just like individual and just want to be themselves and everything else like that. So um so like the funny thing about the movie is even though it's in the 90s, like it occurred to me that I'm in my 40s, and so quite a few people in this audience, when I reference something like PCU, there's probably a lot of folks in here that are evolved enough and intelligent enough and have enough experience to understand my material, yet um as young as I might appear at times. I mean, I'm not saying that I look that young, but I don't look that old either. But um PCU is one of those movies where um, you may not be familiar with it if you were born like in the 90s or like after, like later, or after that era or whatever. So like some of the things going on right now might almost seem like they're new. And I would say like this is why like some of us who are like a little bit more experienced, like, and if you're still kind of on the fence about what to think, I'm just trying to show you like something that you may want to watch that you might find funny that's from the 90s. It shows you like the architecture of it, and it's all in here, guys. Like for example, all right, so that's like the regular guys, the anarchists, for example, who are the ones who don't want any form of anything, say that these guys are more like libertarians. And then David Spade, they're the skull and bones Yale Republicans. They're the establishment CIA Nazi background, you know, Republican neocons. And then the whole university is run by a woman that insists that everybody, it's just like the Kamala thing. She insists that if you call her name is Andrea, but if you call her Andrea, she gets upset with you. So they go like, "Oh, this is Andrea Garcia Thompson, or the head of the university." She's like, "It's Andrea." So like the name correction, politics. Like, no, I'm going to have a name that's more sophisticated to say it's okay, guys. Some people's names legitimately are like mine. I mean, honestly, guys, my first name technically is Hustine, but I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it and insist that you all call me that. I don't care that much. I just assume not use the name because I don't really go by the name. But when I'm in work environments, I don't go in there and tell everybody, "Hey, everybody, it's Hustine." Now, I might tell people I talk to more frequently if I get to know them better. I'll probably say, like, just so you know, especially if they're Mexican or they're Hispanic, I'll go, "Technically, I have an accent on the I, so it's Hustine." But no one is, I could tell somebody that 10 times over and they'll still call out Justin. So for all intents and purposes, just you can call me Justin. It's fine. No one's gonna call me Hustine, and I don't even use the name Justin. Anyways, I go by Gabe or Gabriel. So, anyways, um, so the point is that so in PCU though, you have things like where they're kind of poking at basically every conceivable group. It's even self-referentially insulting to the main characters. Like nobody is kind of spared, but I wouldn't call it a nihilistic comedy either. It doesn't have the tone of like Team America World Police or like a South Park movie, It does seem to have like a bit of an agenda just to get people to sort of like lay down their swords, relax a little bit, party together, hang out together a little bit, and maybe you'll find you're not that different. And so it all just culminates into all these different protests going on around the campus. And then the one who's leading the university, the liberal Andrea Garcia Thompson, who's like trying to do everything eco-friendly and introduce a new rare endangered species as their mascot. I mean, all kinds of bizarre and crazy things they're doing to uber liberal and progressive up the campus, you know. And then treating everybody who protests like a victim too. Like there's this one group of like hippie protesters, and she's always like going, Miss Andrea Garcia Thompson, my feelings were really hurt today when somebody made an aggressive gesture towards my, you know, that kind of thing. You know, like it's not a safe environment because things can hurt my feelings. It's like, well, the world can hurt your feelings. I mean, buck up there, little campers. I mean, yeah, it's a tough world out there sometimes. You're not always going to be shielded from harsh statements and criticisms. I know this from personal experience. I've been on the side of it, and I've given out a fair share. So we all have to be prepared for that in this world, and hopefully college is part of that experience. But that's what's so funny about PCU is that it kind of highlights that no, they're not getting that experience overall. So I think, guys, that this movie has been kind of put out of print. Like, it's hard to find, and you won't find it on streaming services. If you can, tell me. If you can find it on streaming services or even a bootleg of it online, tell me. But I'm telling you guys, like, I had to basically buy this disc off of Amazon, like a used disc, because I couldn't even find a newer one that was still in print. Anyways, I find, though, that movies that have that kind of like hidden comedic genius that brings people together, a lot of times just they make aggressive attempts to erase them from existence. You know what I'm saying? But I'm telling you guys, this is one that it's a funny movie. Don't let this one out of your whatever. It's got a good I don't know, I think it has a good heart to it, to be honest with you, even though it's kind of a stupid beer guzzling kind of movie. There's a lot of cool, clever jokes in it, references. Like one character it's a liberal college, and so one of the characters has this complete, like, his whole thesis for graduation is going to be to prove that no matter what time of day, no matter where you are, if you turn on a television, you'll be able to find at least one movie with Gene Hackman or Michael Caine. That's his senior thesis, and all he does is sit around watching movies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so he can master it and actually, so he actually like reaches a point in the movie where Michael Caine and Gene Hackman are in the same film while like one of their other films are playing simultaneously, and his mind starts to blow up, and he's like, "This is it. This is the basis of my thesis." So, if you think about it, though, that joke right there has a hidden genius if you really understand things. Gene Hackman, Michael Caine. There's so much going on with this movie. I promise you, it's more than just a dumb comedy. But if you only enjoy it as a dumb comedy purely, it'll satisfy you on that level. Lots of clever jokes and puns and things like that. But it is a movie that kind of makes people like think a little bit about, like, should I be protesting this? I'm starting to feel a little bit foolish. Yeah, I mean, a lot of you out there who don't understand that you're being deceived and sometimes being pushed into going out there and raging against a machine that doesn't exist, you may want to look at or show those types of people PCU a little bit. It might chill them out some if they're still reachable. If they're already deep into that shit, you're not going to help them with this movie. But hey, you never know. It's worth a shot. It's the holidays. If you're trying to warm people up to your way of thinking, maybe give it a try before you show it to them so you know what you're getting into. But it's actually pretty clever. I mean, you got Skull and Bones references in there. The liberal college professor and head of the college. Lots of clever jokes that jibe fairly on both ends, to where, like, if you're conservative, you'll find the conservative jibes funny. If you're liberal and you find some of these other people annoying, you'll find those jokes funny too. You're like, come on, man. Like, I have a legitimate issue. That person just protests everything that they fucking see on the news and don't even research it. You know what I'm saying? So nearly everybody will find something, I think, that they can relate to in PCU. So I don't know. Now, this one here doesn't have a lot of disclosure type things, and I don't know if it'll appeal to you guys, but it's another one of those ones that's like out of print that I love, and I try to tell people about, when I think about it. And this one's another comedy, and it's called The Darwin Awards, starring Joseph Fiennes and Winona Ryder. And this one involves, like, this cop that gets fired from the police force and decides to make he's an investigator, like a detective in the police force, but he faints at the sight of blood. And this problem that he has causes him to lose his job because it causes a huge embarrassment for the police force. And so he tries to make his 2.0 predicting based on people's characteristics. Like he's a statistician, even though he's a cop. He's like a person that's always thinking about human behavior and how to predict what they're going to do. So it's kind of cool on that level, guys. Like it's a psychological comedy. It has a lot of really really cool things going on with it. And the director, Finn Taylor, nearly everything Finn Taylor has done is just underappreciated genius. If you ask me, the guy does not get hardly any attention compared to some of these other like huge directors or indie directors. He doesn't make that many movies, but nearly everything I've seen him do, there's one or two movies of his I haven't watched yet that I couldn't vouch for. But the Darwin Awards is excellent. He has one called Swimming with Fishes, I think. It's either Swims with Fishes or Dances with. Hang on, really quick. I don't want to get this wrong. I want to give you the right information. It's a great, great movie. Cherish, that's the other one he did. I have that one on digital video. That's a great movie too. Um, the Darwin, yeah, Dream with the Fishes. Excuse me, sorry. I've been too immersed in the Don Corleone Godfather world. I was Swims with the Fishes. See, no, it's Dreams with the Fishes, by Finn Taylor. So that's another like one of those movies that's sort of like comedic and dramatic and poignant. But he did all three of these movies. Darwin Awards is the one I'm telling you about now. Okay, it's just, and this guy's cameo city in this. Everybody makes like a quick appearance in this in a really really funny way. What are those? Where's that mind? What is it? Mindbusters? What's that show where the guys try to like debunk Mythbusters? So the Mythbusters guys actually have a cameo in this, playing surplus store guys that sell a guy like a rocket that he straps to his car so he can impress his girlfriend. Things like that, clever cameos, where people just kind of walk in and out of the movie really fast. It's a great, great, great flick, and it'll really make you laugh. And it has a lot of like cool moments in it. And what's his name? I always say it wrong if I don't read it. I know, bad Mexican. Wilmer Valderrama. I always say that wrong. I'm talking about, the guy from 70s Show. He plays like, you never see him hardly in the movie. You only hear his voice in the background, but he's freaking hilarious in this because he's a documentarian. The way they set it up to where the camera sort of plays like it's a documentary half the time, so they're following him around like he's a documentarian. So you'll hear his character in the background commenting or talking like, this is a documentary, I cannot get involved. And so conveniently, like whenever he doesn't want to do something, it's like, it's a documentary, I cannot get involved. I cannot do anything. It'll violate documentary. He's like, no, I need you to get on the phone right now and call the police. No, I cannot interfere. So they're always mad at him and getting angry at him. And he's like, no, please don't. Anyways, I love this movie. It's great. Darwin Awards. So guys, so far PCU Darwin Awards are the comedies. Another one that's a little bit, I think this is a timeline movie, but I'd have to do a whole analysis on this one. But let me tell you another one that's really, really cool if you can find it. Again, this is one you're going to have to like look for. It's not on digital video. These are gems, guys. I'm not telling you shit that you can find just anywhere. This is like, when you come to this channel, I'm going to help you find the ones that like you got to go look for, but they're worth looking for. This is one of them. Goldie Hawn, Chevy Chase. A lot of people know about the two of their projects or the other things that they did on their own, but they did two excellent movies together. One was Foul Play, and the other one was called Seems Like Old Times. And the chemistry between Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase is absolutely amazing, especially if you like, if that kind of thing appeals to you. I'm telling you, like, it is right to me. In my mind, it's probably one of the best, like, classic, like Hollywood, like romantic comedy type things. I'm not super into romantic comedies, guys, but the way they go about doing it is so just, it's cool and a little bit goofy, and it feels sincere and genuine at the same time. Like they seem to really, really like each other in the movie. And so the jokes that go back and forth are just like, there's a chemistry to it that's really rare. And so I just want to highlight this one because it has a really complex story that's very clever, involves like the Catholic Church and like dual identities. And so there's definitely some weird timeline things going on in this movie, but it's also just freaking funny. And you don't want to miss the Scrabble game You might even be able to find a scene. Actually, you know what? You guys, I don't want to. Don't tell anyone I told you this because this may not be true later on. If you look this movie up on YouTube right now, you can get a streamable link that won't charge you anything. So somebody's bootlegged it and put it online, and you can watch it, and it is so worth watching. But yeah, again, but if you want to have a better copy of it that looks a little bit better, but I forgot that YouTube still does have a bootleg up online somewhere. So excellent, excellent movie. This is not one you want to miss, to be honest with you. Oh yeah, and Dudley Moore has a cameo in it. Well, he's in it regularly throughout the whole movie, and he it's like before he did like Arthur and things like that, so he wasn't really big yet. So again, these are some movies that maybe like if you're not from that era, you may not have heard of. I was actually a little kid when some of these came out, actually. So these are actually ones that are kind of before my time, to be honest with you guys. These would have been things that I wouldn't have been able to understand when they came out. So I'm not that ancient. No offense to my friends who are, because we're all getting there. But I don't know, man. Something about I feel like time's going. For me, I don't know. I feel like every year lately, I don't. I'm not doing anything exotic, you guys, but I really don't feel like I'm getting older. I don't feel older. I have pains and aches and things like that. Don't get me wrong, but as far as my internal self, my energy levels, my sense of optimism, and my sense of youth in myself is greater than ever. Like I've never felt like I've had more going on for me. Like I wish I had this kind of intellect or even this physical body when I was in my 20s, because I wasn't in this good a shape, and I didn't have this good of a mind. I was still really immersed in alcohol and partying, and just trying to prove, how quickly I could make it to the bottom before anybody else, to see if I could impress people by doing that. Oh dear goodness, what we do with our time sometimes. All right. So staying on the theme of comedy before I transition into the more cool, serious timeline type shit. Again, guys, I know because of the whole Isaac Cappy thing that it's put a whole bunch of people off from Tom Hanks's work. I have no, I don't really buy any of that narrative, to be honest with you guys. But I'm not saying that Tom Hanks is innocent. I don't know, but I do believe people are innocent until proven guilty. All I know is that the thing I've observed, there's some actors that seem to be heavily involved with things that I know are timeline movies, and this guy is one of them. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this, guys. But first all, again, is it disclosure or is it just people telling you shit that they do? I don't really know, but take it or leave it. Dragnet, starring Tom Hanks and what you call it, Dan Aykroyd, is a great movie for disclosure type things. It all involves them actually going after a group called Pagan, that are Satanists that hide out inside law enforcement and political circles, as well as the media, as one union of people that trick everyone into thinking that they're very religious and pure and holy people, while they're rigging everything in the background and doing human sacrifices out in the middle of nowhere. And they heavily gaslight the Joe Friday, or well, not Joe Friday, but it's his nephew, and Tom Hanks's character, who I can't remember his name. It's Skip something, I think. Anyways, but I'll tell you one of the reasons why this got like up close. Like, okay, I've seen a lot of Hanks's films, guys, and I have to be honest with you. I go at a more intuitive level. I really don't know what his deal is. I know what some people associated to his name is and everything. And this isn't me like going like, don't listen to what that person said because I don't believe him. I don't really know, guys. I didn't really follow that, but the whole thing felt. Here's why I'm gonna get deeper into this topic in a little bit, but timeline films is something that I've talked about on this channel. And so I do believe there are defense related projects that do involve a lot of Hollywood using aliases to produce the timeline pictures, because I'm extremely good, you guys, at pinpointing. I'm not the only one. I'm just saying, like, this is one thing I'm proud of. Like, I know that if you present a film to me, like I know it based on its signature, like who's directing it. I can tell a Scorsese film. I can tell when I'm watching, um, even things like Ivan Reitman and John Landis, there's a style to what they do. There's certain directors that have a style and a way that they go about doing things. Brian De Palma has certain techniques that he uses where he plays with putting one thing in soft focus and one thing out of focus internally on the same image, where he'll use interesting ways of rotating the camera to where they form shapes and or communicate another message through the rotation of the camera, the angle. So Steven Soderbergh uses a lot of well, like right now, I have a light that places different color tones on me. Well, he uses camera lenses that actually will place like one solid color depending on the type of mood he's trying to keep in the film. So Out of Sight is a good example of this. When he was trying to create a certain mood, he would use all blue tints on the lens. When he was trying to create another tone, he would do um, red tones. I mean, you'll see this over and over again in Out of the Blue, a film he did with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, like back in the 90s, I think, or maybe early 2000s. I don't necessarily recommend that one. It's decent, but I'm not talking about that one as a recommendation. But I'll tell you guys really quick though, if I can find it. This is one of the reasons why, like, for years, I've always wondered why there was strange synchronicities in movies that were connected to me. And if you follow my research, that I do seem to have a lot of family that are like secretly in Hollywood, but don't reveal it. Okay. And they don't disclose to people because they want that part. I think because some of them were involved with timeline projects, but not all of them are good people. So people are going to keep the secret when they're the producers and the camera technology providers for timeline projects, because part of their involvement was masking people's faces and identities so they wouldn't be known as being part of the timeline projects. And they're in Hollywood films, guys, these Hollywood timeline projects. What I'm telling you is that I think that Tom Hanks was part of the group of people whose lines and dialogues dropped and inserted timeline data in scripts in Hollywood films that were just presented as normal and they had no greater meaning or whatever else like that. They don't even necessarily have to have occult themes, although the one I'm about to show you the clip from does, and it's called The Burbs. And I'll tell you why I'm freaking out on this one, guys, and I always have since I was a kid, but now I really do. Because The Burbs is this movie basically where um, uh, Tom Hanks and his neighbors, that these guys all believe that these new people that moved into a house down the street are Satan worshipers that are practicing sacrifice and keeping bodies buried inside their basement and putting them in the furnace to burn them. And so Carrie Fisher plays Tom Hanks's wife and everything, and she thinks they're all being foolish and ridiculous and everything. And there's this one part where she's like, "Going, well, we're all going to leave if you're going to be foolish." And he goes, "Well, I just need to stay here and decompress and everything. So why don't you take the kids, off to your brothers or sisters or whatever and everything like that, and I'll just hang out back here." And so she's like, "Fine, you probably need some time to yourself." Well, as she's taking the kids away, um, the kid goes, "Dad, please don't make me go. I hate them, Dad. Rudy is a moron and Diane smells." Now, guys, I'm not saying this to directly insult anybody in my direct lineage. I'm explaining to you that my parents literally go by the names Rudy and Diane. And that's telling because technically his name is not Rudy, it's a nickname that's shortened from Rodolfo. So it's Spanish for Rudolph, Rodolfo, and so they call him Rudy. And he's always been called Rudy. In business, they call him Rudy, right? And the DOE where he worked, he would be known as Rudy Cruz. In fact, if any of the people from Eastern Washington that are locals, they could probably chime in and tell you I'm telling you the truth on that. Well, there's one guy that comments here, Fred, quite frequently. He's actually verified that he's heard. He's come into chat boards and actually said, "Dude, I actually asked around, and yeah, people know who your dad and your brother are." And I'm like, "I know. They're big around Hanford. I mean, I don't know how people could not know who at least one of them is, because they had that much responsibility out there, and they were in control of a lot of different people's jobs. My father was in control of human resources at one time, and my brother ran an operations group at the National Security Directorate and a national laboratory where they do all those weird experiments, guys. Things like CERN and particle accelerator type things. Not CERN directly, but linear particle accelerators and all that. Those types of lab experiments were done where my brother works. Anyways, guys, the point is the dad that and my brother are Rudy and Joe. Okay, so they're the ones that worked at DOE. So you see what I'm saying? My mother, even though her name is technically Penny Diane, Penny's her first name and her middle name's Diane, she goes by the name Diane quite frequently. Some people call her Penny, some people call her Diane, but most people call her Diane. So I thought this was really weird that these are both nicknames of my parents that they go by in daily life, but they're not their official names. Like so whoever, if this was designed as some kind of timeline thing, and I'm not saying it was, it could just be a synchronicity. But you guys got to admit, if you know who I am and you know that people know who I am, and the people that I know a lot about this camera technology and everything else like that, it's probably a safe bet to say that somebody inserted this as a light jab that they thought that they would not notice. Because I personally think that the two people that I'm showing you here that are like referenced actually do in fact have connections to Hollywood that they just simply don't divulge. That's an opinion of mine. It's something that I'm sure that either one or both would deny, but it is my rigid opinion at this point. I've just seen too many signs of it, you guys. I don't question it much anymore. Yurok Samaj here says they saw the story on the DOE employee that got arrested for saw this story on the DOE employee that got arrested for stealing luggage. That's weird. Okay, what I've been trying to explain to you guys though is if you know the culture that surrounds Department of Energy, especially when it comes to nuclear, that won't seem that out of place. And what I've been trying to explain to people is there is a culture that's been going on out there, guys, where it became like like they would hide in nuclear reservations and national laboratories people that were convicted of being sex offenders, and they could get their names changed by like one or two letters or change their middle name and then have the person go out to um, like say a person gets arrested under the name John Stephen Doe. Okay, well, what they might do is to keep him protected, since he has the name John Stephen Doe, he gets arrested with child pornography. He gets convicted. It gets put in the newspaper. They don't know what to do. How is he going to spare his life or not go to jail? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the cleanup team goes in to like keep the guy from going to jail. But now they've got to find a way to scrub his identity. But, people are still going to recognize him. So they move him someplace like 4 or 5 hours away, but keep him in the same state. Then they change his middle name from Steven to something like Scott, for example. Why? They both start with S. And they're changing it from Steven to Scott because Scott's a pun. Sick. He's sick. SC, sick. COT. Caught. Sick, caught. So he's sick and he's caught. So that's why they're going to change his name to Scott. And so again, sorry to all you named Scott who aren't sick or got caught. I'm not trying to make a jibe at you, I promise. I actually know some pretty cool people named Scott, so please don't take offense. What I'm saying though is like that's one example that I can give you. The person wasn't named John Doe, but the other factors are the same. And so that's one example of a case where a person was convicted with child pornography, transferred over to the nuclear reservation. They had the middle name changed by one initial. They were hidden out there basically. They scrubbed their old identity by photoshopping all the public photos of their old self, changed it by that one letter. And see how clever this shuffling is? It makes it to where if somebody like me actually detects it, I just look like a person that is willing to apply one of the wrong person to the other simply because they share two common names. Like he didn't even look at the middle name. No, I did. I'm telling you that I know how you rigged it once I found that out. You have another layer of deception. Anyways, that's actually happened at the Department of Energy. So that's one case that I can tell you about, but I know there's more where that becomes the place where the person is not only protected but gets a nice cushy job. Where one of these guys I actually learned he got caught with child pornography in Western Washington. They transfer him to a nuclear reservation in Eastern Washington. Changes middle initial, changes middle name, but not his first and last name. Place him at the Department of Energy with a cushy job that winds up making him and his wife both in the mid $100,000 range per year. They're like making like 140, I think. The last time I checked, they're making like 140 grand a year each. And that's a lot of money, you guys, in that area. I mean, like if you live maybe in New York City, that'd be like, pfft, like, oh, I'm glad I have barely enough to survive. Sure, okay. But what I'm saying though is like in Eastern Washington, where the house prices are like way cheaper, and plus the fact that you live right next to a nuclear reservation, not exactly having the highest curb appeal for your home neighborhoods or whatever, quite a few people out there. If you make over 100 grand a year, you're doing pretty freaking good. I mean, like you're able to stretch your money way further than the average person. Then you got all the rural areas and farms nearby that can produce food and it's local, and so you don't have to have a lot of things brought in. So things over there are just cheaper in general. Housing's cheaper, food's cheaper, gas is cheaper. It's always had some of the cheapest gas. So again, interesting though, right? So I discovered this while I was living on that farm in Eastern Washington, watching it on VHS tape in repetition. I used to watch The Burbs like over and over again, and it used to always make me laugh. The kid would go, "I hate them, Dad. Rudy's a moron, and Diane smells." I mean, literally having a dad that goes by Rudy and a mother that goes by Diane. Can you imagine how much that would make you laugh when you're a little kid? I mean, I got along with my parents when I was a little kid, but now I definitely find it funny. So whoever wrote it, if it was, although I wouldn't ever say either one is a moron, but they're both pretty intelligent people. And I wouldn't say they're smelly. Just trying to be fair. I have differences with them, definitely. But anyways, guys, so there's my weird moment in timeline things, film the reality crossing over into my existing reality. Again, unless you guys think that Rudy and Diane is a common series of names to apply to two kids in the 80s in a script. That's weird to me. I'll show you my birth certificate if you want to see my mom's name is Diane and my dad's name is Rudy. If it's important to anybody to prove it. Okay. So where does that get into to the next part? Well, since we're staying with like modern things before I get into like classic, more older material, I'm going to tell you about something that's really blown me away that I think explains something within timeline loops that I'm about to get deeper into. This series right here, you only have to watch 1 or 2 episodes. You don't really have to get that deep into it to know the basic theme of it and gain something from it. So here's the problem, guys. They do this all the time. Timeline films that have relevant information that I would say I would recommend people watch that are from like the 80s or the 70s or even the 90s, they wind up rebooting them now. And the reboot has almost nothing in common thematically or timeline or informationally to the old one. And so the old one winds up getting overlooked. People watch the new one, and they've done this with a whole bunch of movies. I'll give you examples. Total Recall has timeline information. Fright Night from the 80s has timeline information. Both got remade, and both got remade with the same actor, Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell, I mean, dude, you're cool and all, but like, why are you remaking and rebooting so many 80s movies that I know are timeline films? Like, they're not just regular 80s movies, guys. And those are pretty, like, Total Recall, I can definitely see somebody wanting to make a remake of, even though Paul Verhoeven did a pretty impressive special effects. I don't know why it need to be rebooted yet. What do you call it? Anyways, guys, sorry to get deep into that, but the point is Continuum actually gets into this topic of what would happen if you opened up a frequency communication loop from one timeline to another timeline that's based on well, here's how it works basically. I'll just, because they reveal all this like early in the first episode, but this gal is basically a police officer in the future, like in an existing timeline. And it's in actually, I believe it's set in the Portland, Oregon area. Okay. And there's no longer like prisons the way that we have them now. prisons can be set up like everywhere. So a person is in a prison based on the environment that they're restricted to, and they have to wear collars if they're punished. And so if they do something while they're wearing these collars, they can really get like shocked like a dog, or just disabled, or it'll shut them down. It'll send them like a tase to where their bodies will drop instantly, and that's their punishment. And so that's the way they manage crime in the future, as opposed to putting people in jail cells, right? And instead of it being a government, everything is turned into basically a corporatocracy where corporations manage everything openly. They're the leaders. You basically pick what corporation runs your governance and presidents. Like, you're selecting brands. It's strange how much it's actually like reality, guys. It's like we're really kind of there already. I don't even know why they were acting like this is a vision of the future. But um, but the point is, there's a group of people that are trying to like get out of going to prison, so they set up some like electromagnetic, something similar to, I guess you could say it would be like a USS Eldridge type device from the Philadelphia experiment, something that'll make it to where they're worked out of the jail cell area before they go in, and place them into another location. But something goes wrong with the technology, and instead of it just placing them in a different location within the same timeline, it takes the entire group of the criminals along with one of the police officers, which is her, and they take them back to the current year, which is now. And um, so all the cops in the future have embedded they have implants. Nobody even thinks twice about them in the future. It's like getting an espresso, they'll like walk up and just like, inject the implant. Or you're going in for your recruitment session as a cop, like when she gets signs up for it, and they're already like going, okay, we're going to put your retina implant in. And the machine clicks right on and starts to place it on her eye and everything. So they have it at that level of mastery in the year 2077 or whenever it takes place in. But the point is, they put the communication device, which is similar to what I call silent mind. It's basically synthetic telepathy, where they can communicate over this, and this transport layer wirelessly, where they can just think something and then it goes to the other person. And that's why I find Continuum like a really fascinating series, is because it doesn't just discuss this at a surface level, like it's whatever. You see them reasoning through in the first few episodes, especially like, okay, wait a second, I developed a technology in the year 2012. You're coming from the year 2077. So let me think here. So how do I send this information to you on this timeline in a way that you'll actually receive it? Because here's the thing, her implants from the year 2077, but she's sent back to the same year, I think, as I can't remember if she's in the same year as him or if she's just close to the same year as him, but it's close enough to where it's something that's tangible for him. The point is, she winds up talking to the inventor of the silent mind technology that lets all the cops communicate in the future. He's just now inventing it in this current timeline. And so when she lands in the current timeline from time travel, she already has the frequency transmitting from her headset to the guy that's experimenting with it. So, and he's like all surprised. He's like, hey, this is my frequency. This is like my technology. This is encryption. I don't even, how are you even talking to me on this? And she goes, you're on a secure channel. You need to get off this. This is for police officers only. So they're going back and forth and arguing. And he's like, no, I invented this. This is my secure technology. And she's like, wait a minute, what's your name? And so then she discovers that he's the inventor that everybody knows about. So like the same way that everybody knows who Elon Musk is now, everybody knows who the implant inventor of the silent mind technology is in the year that she's from. So he's like a god or a legend in the future, and everybody knows him because he's the inventor of it and the supplier of it. So it's trippy, guys, the way this movie they're not a movie, but it's a TV series. It went for like 4 seasons, but I've really only watched the first season, and I haven't even finished the entire thing. But you get enough of the information. You don't have to continue watching the plot lines. Like, they cover so much of this timeline aspect of it that after that, it just becomes a matter of, thinking through all the different ways that timeline loops could potentially work. Like, I mean, if something like this happened, guys, I think it's a little bit lofty to say that somebody would have like crossed over from one time to another per se. But the idea that people can use a frequency channel and a certain encryption method, and they could potentially be talking from the year 2012 to the year now, for example, or from now to 1985 or whenever. To me personally, as a person that worked around radio frequency for a number of years, I find it a compelling sci-fi concept because I can actually reason through it logically. I can think to myself, gosh, something I think I can think of certain circumstances where something like that might actually happen. Or I can logic and reason my way through it. So again, I think this is a great one to like learn from. But again, if you try to stream it, you probably won't find it. You'll have to get the disc, or you'll have to get a bootleg or something like that, because there's two different series that are called Continuum, and so I want to make sure that you get the one that, if you do decide to watch it, make sure this actress Rachel Nichols is in it. There's another series that tries to look like it's the exact same thing, even spells Continuum the same. It came out the same freaking year. The difference is this was a Canadian series and the other one was from the US or Europe. So that's how they got away with having two series with the exact same names the same year. And they even have some one's like a directly outer space one. The other one's takes place completely in outer space. This one's just between timelines here on Earth. So but great way to learn about timeline loops, or try to like think about different ways that it could work if you're a person that likes a little bit something more, when it comes to when you're watching something, you want it to have a little bit more thought-provoking things and not just entertain at that basic level. All right. Yeah, okay, I'll talk about this one next. Guys, I've mentioned this one many times. I've even done some longer presentations using slides from the Believers. This one actually is available to stream and for free. If you don't mind commercials, you can get it in America, at least on 2 or 3 different streaming services for free right now, I think. And there's a few other places that have it. I don't know if you can buy it, but you can definitely stream it for free in quite a few different places. So I'm not even sure if you can rent it in most cases. It's like it's available on most of those, like those commercial free movies that are like older type services, like Tubi, Pluto type things. I think it's on Tubi. But anyways, or you can just buy the DVD. This stars Martin Sheen, and it's about a police detective, like a police psychologist, actually, that um, he him and his son experience the loss of his wife, and it happens right in front of his son. She gets electrocuted in the kitchen in front of the kids, so it traumatizes him pretty considerably. And there's a brujeria cult that, when he moves to his new area in New York, to his new home, that this elite cult that consists of both people in the streets that are at that level doing like the street crime, as well as people that are at like the more elite political level, who are in like cahoots with one another, and they're all in this death cult, and they all practice brujeria. And so Martin Sheen has to consult with like these like black magicians and dark magicians and light magicians, and go to different places and ask people about, the religious practices and what different types of incantations mean, and what it means when you bring a certain type of statue and place it under, or what does it mean when you stir something around in water. Like he's inquiring and investigating. So I find this movie is a really good film for people to learn from, if you just want something that more than entertainment, edutainment. It's a compelling film. It's well done. John Schlesinger is a good quality director. He made quite a few good films. And this is definitely no exception. I would recommend this one completely, because it gets deep into the relationship in a realistic way. It's not kind of Hollywood and salacious. This is actually believable. You can actually see something like this happening. And nowadays, they really try to obscure these stories and make them seem like they're just fiction. It's like they've tried to sweep this whole practice of ritual sacrifice under the rug as if it doesn't exist, and it does. They're doing it in more sophisticated ways now, I would argue. They have soft sacrifice and not just hard sacrifice, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, The Believers is an excellent quality film. It's not really, I wouldn't even call it a horror film, but I will warn you, like, it's definitely explicit. The other thing I noticed about The Believers, guys, is it has Jimmy Smits. And there's something about the actor Jimmy Smits being in this type of movie, giving this type of disclosure. He literally is in this movie. There's a scene where he yells out, Brujeria, Brujeria, they're coming for you. You can't get away from them. So, like, his character is aware and knows, like, some of the things that are going on to this day. I've spoke at length about Brujeria before, you guys. Like, I don't know if you know this, but here in America, what's scripted in this movie basically is going on. Oh, you can look up Azalea Banks, the artist. I think I don't know if she does hip hop or if she does R&B or a mixture of both. I don't listen to her music, but she basically came out a few years ago and told everybody straight up she's a brujeria witch on her Instagram or Periscope or something like that, and just started showing everybody her sacrifice altars and all the blood scattered everywhere, and there was like feathers from chickens and blood mixed in, and she was saying, "Got to get my sandblaster out. Got to, real witches do real witch things," and she keeps saying it over and over again. She's a real witch doing real witch things, and she tells all of her fans about it. So if you want to know what she was talking about, okay, in that clip, this movie covers it. But it's dark, guys. I mean, it goes dark, and it gets into everything. Um, Political corruption, law enforcement corruption, the connection between elite societies to the street dealers and the street, gangs and things like that, the protection mechanisms that exist between them, and that they practice a common religion, being brujeria. And a film that talks about it way less, and it's not as deep into the topic. It's more of an action movie. It's called Band of the Hand. And even that movie mentions the practice of brujeria amongst the gangs and the cartels. Okay. So it's a thing, guys. These movies were communicating it over and over again. It's not just because a movie says it. I'm saying, like, some of these movies get so direct in communicating it in repetition that this connection between, like, that it's not just that a cartel member that runs shit practices witchcraft, and they have in, like, Band of the Hand, actually there's a few really disturbing scenes where you see, like, an actress knowing that she's in the worst place that she could possibly be in. Lauren Holly, she goes to this, like, drug kingpin's house and realizes that he's about to take advantage of her, and when she goes inside this room and she opens up the cabinet of his bedroom, she sees this big brujeria, you know um altar. So, I mean, it's no joke, guys. There's references to these things that exist for a reason. So sorry to get dark, guys. I told you I was going to have to go into some of those topics tonight. So this is one, though, that does it brilliantly and actually gives you a good education, and I would recommend it. All right. So the last couple ones that I have as far as, like, recommends are, I'll do this one first because this one's super hard to find. In fact, what this is a French DVD set. I was able to procure this while I was working on my seafood contract because this is extremely hard to find. But if you can get this, or you can find a way to watch it, the way to watch it sometimes is on Night Gallery. And so you can't get it on the DVD series of Night Gallery, but if you watch Night Gallery on television, you'll find episodes of The Sixth Sense, not in French, by the way. It wasn't French at all. But this is about a psychic detective, and guys, like, if you're into psychic research and you like doing side topics and things like that, one time I'm going to do a whole analysis of episodes of The Sixth Sense as well as Night Gallery and how they tend to cover psychic research and remote viewing deep. I mean, guys, like, it's weird how these series, it's almost like they had insights into real things that were going on within these communities. Like the other night I told you about the film Vibes. Vibes has a character in it named Ingo Sweedlin. That's one of the psychics, like one of the main prominent psychics that everybody goes to, right? And then at the time Vibes came out, one of the main real psychics that was known in the Psy community was named Ingo Swan. So, like, the fact that the movie's got a character named Ingo Sweedlin, and in the real life there was a guy named Ingo Swan. I mean, Ingo's not that common of a name, at least not here in the States. We don't hear it very frequently. Probably up in other parts of Scandinavia or wherever else they probably hear it more frequently, but not here. But yeah, this one, there's a lot of different episodes that cover in detail, like psychic research facilities, weaponized psychotronic methods where psychics can hive together and actually do like ritualistic magic, but in a more industrial scale that's measurable. So things that you might consider to be like just simply a spell or a hex, or you think somebody's only just going while they're meditating, their eyes are rolling. Like in this, they'll actually show that they're generating like a factor of energy and that they can do things to actually harm people by hiving together with their minds and sending out signals to a certain person, like damn near being able to make that person's head explode just through psychic energy, psychotronic energy. Which, guys, you can mock it or whatever, but this movie, or not movie, but this series, it covers it at more of a, he himself is trying to learn the truth. And then even though it was done on television, like it's pretty awesome the way anytime they run across some degree of psychic phenomenon, he just simply just lays it all out and gives like a really like detailed description. He goes like, well, you see, this is the process of remote sensing. It's when a person doesn't, like, and they're usually pretty accurate descriptions, more so than you find on Wikipedia and other types of, like Wikipedia is full of shit. We all know that. But what I'm saying though is when it comes to this topic, they're really great descriptions of things that involve the psi community. And again, this is the French one. It's actually called The Sixth Sense, and it starred Gary Collins. That's how you find it. Look up Gary Collins first, plus The Sixth Sense, and you'll be able to get this. And you can find this on Amazon if you're really, really curious and you want to go searching for it. You can find this box set. All right. That's only if you're a super fan. You probably want to watch an episode or two or find it. But again, it's one of those things where somebody wants, the best thing I can tell you is, guys, somebody wants this suppressed. They don't want you to see these episodes because they do give extremely realistic portrayals of actual psychic research projects that were happening at places like Science Applications International Corporation or Stanford Research Institute at the time, Cognitive Sciences Lab. All these different places are running all these different types of like intense remote viewing and psychic research programs, and sometimes it involved defense projects. And this series even gets into the ethics of it. Like when a person decides they don't want to do something damaging for the government, or the Defense Department wants them to use it in a weaponized fashion or to gain intelligence on somebody they don't agree with. Like what are the ethics in that? Does the person say no? Can they say no? Once you're recruited, are you allowed to, use your morals and ethos, and how does that jam your ability? Like if you're going to do something that you don't want to do, you see, like with psychic ability, like it gets into all these types of things. Like you can't have a person that you're asking to use their ability being distracted the whole time at the fact that they don't want to do it. So it seems to me like you'd have to trick a person who's good and has psychic ability into doing malicious things with their psychic ability. Or you'd have to really just only elevate people who are malicious and completely ignore the good ones, which is kind of what the labs in the United States do. If you're a malicious psi researcher and a malicious psychic, you'll get all the funding and attention that you can possibly whatever, because you're at least doing some of the bidding for them. But if all you have is a human interest element to it, or learning more, or expanding people's minds, that no one wants to talk to you. Typically, not always. Night Gallery. All right, this is a TV series, the Comet Channel. If those who get the Comet Channel in your local towns, you can probably find this on there, as well as The Sixth Sense, some episodes of it. This is something that Rod Serling, the creator of Twilight Zone, was involved with after Twilight Zone had stopped airing. I wouldn't call it an extension of Twilight Zone, but it's about as close as you're going to get to an extension of the Twilight Zone for something that's like more current, and not the Twilight Zone itself, because it does have his kind of signature on quite a few of the episodes, but he did write some of them. And so again, you're going to find some of these episodes will say written by Rod Serling. Some of them are directed by the same people that were connected to Twilight Zone. So there is that crossover. And again, the thing I find compelling is that Night Gallery really delves at a more deep dive level with topics that involve psychic research, that involve witchcraft, where they really actually show people going through detailed like incantations and spells and hexing and explaining the process of them at a deeper level, guys. Like now it's just simply like you either believe it can happen or you don't believe, but people on both sides of it don't really get that. They don't really, it's like they're not looking for the deeper answers. either to disprove or prove it. That's the problem that I have. I was like, oh, I'm glad there's lots of people out there that can believe it, but like, what are they doing to find tangible evidence of its existence, and how are they proving it, and how are they validating it or disproving it to themselves? Because if you actually care and you think it can happen, then you also want to like debunk your own theories too, because others are going to try to debunk them. So you want to have something that's a little bit more, that people can actually, whatever. And Night Gallery, especially when it comes to explaining like hexes and spells, it helps you understand them at that micro level, like people performing them in these types of series that seems more like it's costume magic, but it's not. Like some of the things, guys, I'm telling you, it's trippy. Like I was watching Night Gallery, and there's this one spell that's called like the as. I don't get into magic shit, guys, or Satanism. So, but it's called Astaroth. I always forget the name of this person, but it's in a whole bunch of these episodes that goes all the way back to the 50s, you guys. Like not just Night Gallery had one, but like a series called The Thriller that Bela Lugosi used to host. It has a whole spell casting for Azathoth. This has 2 episodes with it. I think an episode of Twilight Zone did. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was finding in these old series this whole spell. It's called a something to Azathoth. It has a name, and it's in a specific book called like it might be a Necronomicon thing. But what's bizarre, guys, is how many different series that were completely unrelated and had different creators, even in many cases, that were referencing it and showing it on film in an episode, like graphically, to where you didn't just like see like a little snippet of it. It like took them like 3, 4, 5 minutes of a 20, 30-minute episode, really long, like hearing them spellcast and things like that, to where I'm like going, was that part of what they were doing? Was that part of the spell? It makes me wonder. So I'm not trying to get somebody to watch it for that reason or whatever. You'll know what episode it is when you see it, and whether or not you want to expose yourself to it. But this one was it's just trippy, you guys. This is one of those ones that I think has timeline things going on in it. It's educational, and it's just super weird, good weird. It's the kind of thing you can watch it once, and not all of them are excellent, guys, don't get me wrong. But even when they're not great, it still makes you scratch your head and think. You're like going, why did somebody make that? I know that has a larger reason. And so it makes you question things a little bit. So I like it. It's a good intellectual primer. Rod Serling is great. If you're a fan of things like Twilight Zone, this will definitely make you happy. So yeah. So I didn't mean to ignore your question the other day there. Is it safe to say that you're James Corey and I shouldn't call you Yurok Samaj? So you can say yes or no if you want to, but it says, have you looked at the 90s group KLF? Absolutely nuts. Just read about it. Yeah, I have KLF music. I was actually a person that listened to KLF. KLF, uh-huh. Yeah, White Room. I have a bunch of their songs. There's one that's called, a friend of mine actually got me into KLF like back in the 90s. A friend I used to work with, because we both used to like trade like tips for like especially like better like electronic music. He liked a lot of ambient, so he would recommend things to me like Brian Eno albums I'd never heard, and like Talk Talk records that were pretty obscure that most people don't think about. Like Talk Talk is known for their main record, like their hits. Talk 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 Talk, all you ever do is talk talk. And they got one. It's a couple other songs, that they were really popular for doing. But Talk Talk had a song called Talk Talk. But anyways, they had some really classic albums though that were really quiet and melodic, that a lot of other bands like Radiohead, they kind of referenced the ambiance of them and things like that. You can see them kind of paying homage to them. So he would get me into things like that and make a lot of really good recommendations. He actually recommended the Icelandic band Sigur Rós to me too. So that dude like had amazing like musical taste, man. Like probably one of the coolest people I ever knew. But yeah, I'm familiar though, and I know a lot of the background story of KLF too. It's weird that you're saying this actually, because I'm trying to think about why I got curious about it's because why I know about KLF. It's because Alex Patterson from the Orb was in that band part time, I think, or he was like like briefly a member, or was in there maybe during the White Room era. or maybe during that ambient album that they did, the Sleep album or something like that. There's one that's called the Sleep record or the Sleep album. That's the or the ambient album. It's amazing. That KLF record is probably the best one, and that's the one that my friend got me into because I didn't know about that one. I knew about I had heard some of the like the other KLF records and saw the symbolism in the videos, but it didn't impress me at the time that I watched it. See, I didn't really study these things at the same level, so it wasn't until later on that I was kind of like, oh yeah, there's probably a lot going on there. But see, if Alex Patterson was even involved with the KLF, even just for a little bit, that guy is over the like. I haven't like I don't follow him now. I haven't followed that guy since like the 90s or what he's doing or anything like that. But I do remember that one of the things that super impressed me about Alex Patterson was how much he knew about the way that different audio patterns, frequencies, and loops work on the subconscious. And if you listen to the band The Orb, so like KLF and The Orb are, there's some similarities actually. You'll find stylistically, I think if you enjoyed KLF and if you haven't heard of The Orb is spelled exactly like that, not to be confused with Orbital, who's also pretty good, but it's a different style. But the Orb has some really, really, really good ambient records that have like like all kinds of crazy shit going on. Where like if you listen to it, you'll like it plays around with your sonic perception and spatial reasoning, and like sounds will sound like they're coming from the top hemisphere of your brain and then down here. It like the headphones listening to the Orb is a really mind blowing experience. You'll hear audio crawls doing things. Yeah, but I mean, it's not like manipulation or anything like that. It's just more there for you to like think about and process at that level. Like he kind of shows you different methods. There's this one song that like this audio crawl in this one song by The Orb. It's unintelligible when it first starts in the song, and it's way off in the background, and it just slowly builds up volume. And he does things like this just masterfully, and it just kind of goes like this at first. It's taking out like a huge chunks of the whole line, and eventually you actually hear the line as it was meant to be intact, and it just goes, listen to the radio, listen to the radio, listen to the radio, listen to the radio. But when it starts off, it's like really low, and you can just only like barely hear it, and it's just kind of like he does things like that in all of his songs that like, but the reason why I like it is because for me at least it trained my brain to find extra things. Like I listen for it, I look for it. That's the great thing about listening to bands like The Orb and like really sophisticated forms of ambient or electronic music that are really going for something that's more than just I'm gonna freak them out, man. Some of these bands just want to do things for people to be high on, and that's all they're interested in. But The Orb was really super interested in like learning about how sound and different types of patterns affect people's subconscious and affects them at that deeper level. So if you're ever looking for something that's like way higher order, early Orb records, like all of them, even the more pop and electronic sounding ones, but Orbis Terrarum, that's the one to get. If you can get Orbis Terrarum by The Orb, that is a mind-blowing ambient like electronic record. It'll like make you like completely rethink everything. Orbital's got some music like that too. I can't remember the name of it. The Snivelization is another good one. That's kind of an epic, long form, weird kind of record by The Orbital. Sorry to confuse the two orbs, but when I think about one, I think about the other. It's just natural. But yeah, so good recommend though. Yeah, I agree though. KLF has got some good music. There's no question. So I was trying to think. There was some other things that I wanted to keep this one to be a little bit more pleasant, but I have lots of like movie related material that I can share with you guys. And how much I was going to do tonight, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how much I want to do because I was really trying to keep this to where I just like talk music and movies. And if you guys have things you want to like, ask me about as far as like different entertainment series, or if there's something that you've been asking me about in the chats that so far I haven't mentioned, let me know now before I start to like, I'm either gonna like start playing another video here in a second, or I'm going to start to wind down the stream because I didn't have a lot of other things to talk about beyond this. Oh, you know what? No, no, I did actually. I was going to talk about Outer Limits in more detail. That's right. Yeah, guys, the Outer Limits is another one of those um, great. Start with season one, Outer Limits from the '60s, and it's again, it's another one of those ones that explores specifically the use of technology, what is between different universes potentially, or what are the unknown factors. And the thing you'll observe if you read the plot lines, this is what I recommend. Like before you like get too interested in Outer Limits, um, read through like go the description of each episode either on IMDb or go into like one of the places that sells the episodes and just read each episode one, episode one, episode two. And by the time you get probably about, to the 10th or 20th episode or so, you're going to be convinced that this is something you need to watch because it always involves like messing with frequencies, electromagnetic fields, timeline manipulation, the ability to look in on a different timeline or a different space time reference. And they're, even though they don't have great special effects, the way they did it was so high quality as far as like the yeah, even the dialogue, I would say it's better than average quality dialogue. It's more intellectual in nature, even though I would honestly say that most of the creatures that they have in each episode are pretty laughable as far as like none of them are going to scare you by any means. But yeah, we control your horizontal. We also control your vertical. Yeah, there's like the opening scene of it. PW Northwest just quoted, we are in control of your television. We control your horizontal. We control your vertical. We control. I don't know how. I can't remember what exactly they say, but I haven't watched all the episodes back to back in a while. But the one in particular that I talked about at length, you guys, starred Henry Silva because again, like if you followed some of my other things, I think I got some weird connection to Henry Silva genetically, and Henry Silva basically though uh he's in like two episodes of the Outer Limits, and one in particular involves him being like a prisoner and them offering him like the ability to get out of jail and have his sentence like removed if he'll just do this one experiment with the military. And so, he agrees to it. He goes like, so what does it involve? They go, well, we're going to run you all these different frequencies through you while you're in this chamber. And running these different electromagnetic fields through you at high power will transport you from one location to another location in theory. We've done this with inanimate objects, but we haven't done it with any living people yet. So, they're basically trying to like test it on prisoners. And so Henry Silva, his character is this guy, Chino Rivera, that they select as one of the guys. And he volunteers for it too. And because he's just looking at it as a reason to maybe escape, from the jail or the hospital. So he doesn't even take it seriously. He's just thinking to himself, well, what harm can it do? At least it'll be like a day away from the jail. And so Henry Silva basically um, has some really, really telling lines in it that made me think that he knew, like, or not him necessarily him, but that the series itself was functioning in a different way. Like it was giving like a whole different set of information, like warnings of things that they thought were going to happen potentially. That's really what Outer Limits feels like. Like when they were designing the scripts, there's so much technical data. If you watch the series, it gets so specific at times where they discuss the methods that they go through, and the processes, that it really makes you wonder how much they actually knew. Or was it simply they were warning us of an invention via that they were getting information about via timeline technology? So is it more that perhaps in the year 2012 or 2022, for example, say somebody's developed this invention today, what would be one of the first things you'd want to do? I don't know. Some people would probably want to stop World War II or something like that. Although it's funny that I say that because that's a theme that's covered in Night Gallery. There's actually an episode of Night Gallery where a guy basically, I think, if it's not Night Gallery, it's something else, like Ray Bradbury or something like that. But there's an episode where the guy says, um, he like tries to change, like that his dad got shot down in World War II by a Nazi like soldier, and he changes history to where like preventing that one death makes it to where even though he saves his grandfather, the American, in that one conflict, because he saved his grandfather in the one battle, he creates this inverse in history where the Nazis won the war. So his dad gets, or his family bloodline gets saved, and he gets to spend the rest of his life with him. But he learns that it changes the current history to where the Nazis are running America. Interesting episode, is it not? So So you got that one with the electromagnetic frequencies, and you got, I'm trying to think of some other ones. You have another one where basically the first episode actually, and I think the station is even WGEB or WGAB. That's why I was like even more weirded out by some of these episodes. Like my name is in it. A guy that I think, might be a secret great uncle of mine is in two episodes. And I mean, there's like so many things that go on. And then the other thing that really made me curious about Outer Limits was I just noticed that some of the people involved with the production just sounded like they were combining two street names that were close to something at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. And again, that's a common thing that I've seen, guys. Like, so somebody's name in Hollywood will just be, like a location. So it's literally like one of the main producers on a whole bunch of those old episodes that they created like a character surrounding his name, Leslie Stevens. But that's also like two major streets where the Hanford Nuclear Reservation activities intersect. Leslie Road, Stevens Road, and especially Stevens, like back in the time when Outer Limits was being filmed, that was like a big part of America. I mean, and those projects were, and the things that were going on afterwards, like that reservation where Leslie and Stevens is where they basically produced a bunch of the plutonium that wound up in Fat Man and Little Boy. They got dropped, the bombs that got dropped on Nagasaki. They produced that in Eastern Washington, a lot of the plutonium. A lot of folks don't know this. Like that's where I was living, you guys, when I was like a kid, and that's where my dad and my brother like earned their bread and butter, was at the same lab in the same Department of Energy that produced the bomb that dropped on Nagasaki. And the town is so cluelessly proud of their achievements in the nuclear industry that, well, consciously proud but cluelessly inhuman, that literally the high school in Richland that's connected to the Hanford Nuclear Reservation has a big mushroom cloud as their insignia. And I'll show you if you don't believe me. A lot of people didn't. I didn't. I was like, is that really hard to believe that this would be a thing? But I guess a lot of people found it hard to believe, so I had to like actually show them. But hang on here. So I mean, that was kind of the culture that I was immersed in as a kid, and that's still their insignia. I didn't go to Richland actually. I went to Connell, but we lived out in the sticks, and my dad worked in Richland, and it took him like 45 minutes to get to work from where we lived. So we had a farm out there in the sticks. But what I've thought for a long time is that quite a bit of the Hollywood material was actually produced in Eastern Washington, especially things that are more esoteric and timeline related. They either received funding and they were filmed with the help and facilitation and whatever funding to communicate details about nuclear projects. Some films, that's literally all they were to do, is to pass information about nuclear to a larger audience. And so, yeah, a bunch of these people could go see a shitty movie at the drive-in that was made on a shoestring budget, and the reels are distributed around the country because that provides information to the people that just go to the theater or the drive-in. They watch it, and a lot of times people don't even know like why they're entertained by these movies. Some of the dialogue doesn't even make sense because it's that encoded and encrypted. Go back and watch a bunch of movies from the 70s, 80s, especially like really stupid, silly comedies, and you'll learn like, why is that joke even funny? That doesn't even make any sense. Or why do those people, why did they waste like 2 or 3 minutes of this film on that section of dialogue? Well, because it had another meaning. It didn't drive the story forward. It wasn't just bad scripting. Sometimes it's actually deliberate. I mean, it costs a lot of money to put something on film back in the day. So they wouldn't have unnecessary dialogue for no reason. Shoot something that you have to edit out later. Not many people had the budget for it, not for these kind of movies. So they were lucky to even get the film reel that they got because they were so low budget. But that's the storyline. Like, I'm talking like Roger Corman type movies. Like a lot of that crap, as far as I'm concerned, a whole bunch of that was filmed out there in Eastern Washington. In many cases, they actually filmed some of them there and said that they were like in the deserts of Arizona or Nevada or wherever else like that when they're really just in Eastern Washington because it is desertous. Well, all you guys got to do if you want to find it, just look it up. Richland, Washington, Richland High School bombers. I mean, don't nowadays that might actually get you arrested to put that in, so be careful. But somebody shows up to your front door. No, no, no. I was literally just looking up Richland High School's his mascot being bombers. I wasn't saying I was going to do that. So yeah, but that's kind of weird to me. Like they have this whole culture that's still kind of immersed in this, and they even have Japan as one of the sister cities to the area. Oh well, geez, guys, that's basically where I have a lot of my roots is Hanford. I mean, we had a family farm out there in Eltopia that was just on the other side. So, like, those who weren't familiar, when I was a kid and I moved out there, I could see the stacks from the nuclear reactor. They were still active, and I could see them out our window. We were that close. It was like, like 3 Mile Island, you could actually see the stacks and the reactors from all these different angles. We were in a place where we could physically see the nuclear reactors. So, like when I do all my Bart Simpson, Springfield references and things involving Homer Simpson, I do it with a whole different, like, it's way closer to me than the average person. Like, I was heavily immersed in this whole pro nuclear culture, especially. That's why I try to explain to people, like, I have a different perspective on nuclear because most people think that it really is just a bunch of science geeks that are hanging out back there, and I'm like, not so much, really. Not really. It's actually quite occulted. And it's because, like I explained yesterday, a lot of their heroes are people that were into these like groups like Crowley and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. They get into Scientology, OTO, sex magic, Thelema, Golden Dawn. Again, because I think especially those things are particularly appealing to people that are intellectuals and didn't get laid a lot in school or while they were in college to be, for lack of a better whatever. It it um it kind of, I think, when the like intelligence services and the deep state, spooks, so to speak, try to like get the intellectual property contained before it gets out. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be their one go-to thing is to woo them with that. I mean, what else would they do, right? But yeah, like as far as timeline and disclosure films, guys, I'm trying to think of anything else while I still have the stream open to talk about. There was one recently. God, I wonder if I should even play this. I'll probably get copyright struck if I do. Here's another one I'm going to recommend though for those. And I probably did this recently, but if you want a good, competent like action movie, if you've never seen In the Blood, starring Gina Carano, that's a great film, guys, and it does have good acting in it. So there's a scene that in it particular where it's revealed that the whole reason why her husband got kidnapped while they were, on this island, because she has to save her husband after he gets kidnapped and they put him into an accident. They get him into an accident on purpose, so they have to take him to the hospital, and then they steal him from her. So it's like an organ harvesting network that she loses her husband to. And so the movie is basically her just trying to find him on this like tourist island that, nobody's helping her. The cops are all corrupt, that kind of thing. And it's just really well acted and directed actually, especially for kind of like a B level action film. But what I'll say though is that this one scene in particular actually talks where she breaks into the hospital and she's talking to the gangster, and he goes like, "Hey, look, you need to calm down. Hey, this doctor here, he's got a whole network of people he keeps on ice for me, okay? Okay, I got this rare cancer. What's it called? What's it called?" And he's talking to his gang, and they say the type of cancer, and he goes like, "Yeah, this melanoma thing. Okay, so I need like this bone marrow for me to survive, and if I don't get it, I don't survive. So this doctor here keeps an eye on all the people that have just the right type of juice for me to get, and that way I can get it. So maybe I should have just approached you guys from the beginning and asked you for it instead of taking it." Because now she's fighting back and she's got a gun to his head. But um, until that happened though, she basically what do you call it? Like that nobody ever talks about what happened to her husband. There's just one scene where she finally is like getting him out. Sorry about the spoilers, guys, but you must know she's gonna, of course, save the guy. But she's looking for him, and that's what's discovered. Like the reason why they're stealing tourists on the island is because there's some network that knows. I mean, this is what like people they never unpackage like the larger idea, sadly, from some of these films that are put out. But when you unpackage the larger idea, it's pretty amazing that even within a fictional script, somebody thought up this idea that somebody has a database with the blood groups, know which ones are compatible, and know who would have a compatible form of bone marrow before these rich tourists land on the island. So that way, when they do land on the island, the cartels and gangs are already ready to go to kidnap them or create an accident through which they can justify taking them to the wrong hospital, but then deliver them to the gangster's special doctor. Something that specific in a plot line, it almost seems like there must be something that probably exists like that in nature, don't you think? Do you think they just thought that plot up out of thin air, that this guy would require some kind of bone marrow? Because that's the movie's very explicit about it. They even show like the gangster loves doing it to his victims. He enjoys seeing the needle stab into their spine and the marrow drawing out. He's like, "Oh yeah, give me that juice, Poppy, give me that juice." Like he seems almost like he's getting high from it. So I thought that was like super interesting that the movie's got this plot line where it's because guys, it like very frequently I've discovered that some of these movies, when they have a topic like that, I don't think that's true necessarily of In the Blood, but oftentimes it's because they are communicating a service, and so you see it in a plot, but it actually communicates that there's a true network, and that, again, if somebody who wants the bone marrow or who wants the organs, even though it's put into the plot line as this drama, sometimes that's just simply a way to communicate how their network operates and who you got to go to and how it's, that kind of thing. The codex to the speakeasy, Fidelio. The film gives the instructions so that people know to say Fidelio when they knock on the door. Does that make more sense? I don't think that that's true about In the Blood, though. But I think that that's true about a lot of movies, is that it's not disclosure as much as it is just telling people this is how you get it. Whatever it is. All right. What else here? There was another one, you guys, that I just was looking into really quick here. Yeah, okay. I did want to, because this is movie night. This one actually will actually kind of blow you away a little bit. Let me show you this. I got a video of this one. God, I knew I was forgetting something. Okay. Anybody a fan of Phantasm series with the flying ball that has the spike in it or whatever and everything? I watched it when I was younger. I'm not really a fan of them now. So I think I saw Phantasm 1, 2, and a little bit of 3, but I've never seen the movies past that or any of these like tons of sequels. But I again, guys, I'm a person that follows visual styles. Like I know visual styles of directors, okay? And I'm a big fan of Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness. And so um whenever I would watch Phantasm 1 and 2, especially part 2, I could not shake the feeling that I was watching a Sam Raimi movie. You know, because Sam Raimi, if you know his style from Evil Dead 2, he's got a very kinetic, it's smooth but kinetic, you know, camera style, and he moves the camera a lot, and he uses a lot of different angles that go like the camera breaks through walls, you know. So like if it's chasing after a character, the camera will be the thing that penetrates the wall and keeps chasing him after and things. So he's got these really cool methods that he uses. And whenever I would watch Phantasm 2, I'm like going, this person either studied everything Sam Raimi does, or it's Sam Raimi just using somebody else's name and likeness. Which I became kind of like semi convinced that it's just Sam Raimi using some other guy's face and likeness to make his movies. And it's like he doesn't want to put Alan Smythe on it, but he's not proud enough of it to put, you know, Sam Raimi. So when I saw this, guys, and I'll end with this one. Okay, I'll share this real fast. This is a cool way to get to stop to end the night here. Check this out, guys. So those of you who are Phantasm 2 fans will be super impressed with this one. I said I've long suspected that Don Coscarelli is an alias that Sam Raimi of Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness uses when he doesn't want to quite Alan Smythe a film, but doesn't want to credit under Sam Raimi. Tonight, I found this blink and you'll miss it Easter egg in Phantasm 2. Look at that, guys. There's this scene where they're going to take one of the gals into the crematorium, you know, to get rid of her. And so it's like this really suspenseful scene where she's watching the caretaker like dispense of all the different ashes from all the other different, you know, crematorium stations and everything like that on the way to doing her. And she's like looking over out of the corner of her eye, and she peers up, and he's pouring the ashes from one of the different things into this bag. And again, it's only on there for like half a second. And I was like, holy, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It actually says my theory. It says Mr. Sam Raimi. Guys, that's so bizarre. So, like, if somebody knows, like, if you know a deeper, you know, connection between Don Coscarelli and Sam Raimi, maybe he just likes the guy so much, or he taught him some techniques or something like that. I don't know. But whatever it is, guys, to me, that was like super, like, whoa, I can't believe I found this. But yeah, and I think again, guys, I'm only going to keep on for another minute here. But the other thing I thought is interesting too is Don Coscarelli, who made these movies, the Phantasm 1 and 2. He also directed a movie called Bubba Hotep, really, really good. Has Bruce Campbell and Ozzie Davis. Really great horror sci-fi comedy. But again, thematically and tone-wise, it is so much like a Sam Raimi movie. And then again, Don Coscarelli did another great movie called John Dies at the End more recently. And whenever I watch that one, I keep thinking, are you sure this isn't just some Sam Raimi movie? Over and over again, guys. It's not just one of his movies. Like every time I watch it, I think I'm watching Sam Raimi. So watch John Dies at the End if you like want something really cool and like updated that actually covers like the black goo and programmable matter topics and different timelines. That movie's like all over the map, weird and cool too, guys. So again, I hope you enjoyed the recommendations. I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll be on probably tomorrow, I'm sure. Have a good night.